Hello, and welcome back to Eye of the Beholder, where we review Dungeon & Dragon miniatures created by WOTC and WizKids in the 20 years between 2003 and 2023. In our last video, we looked at all of the WizKids orcs. With this video, we'll be looking at those created by WOTC. No preamble today. I got everything orcish off my chest with the last video, so let's jump in.
There were a total of 80 miniatures in WOTC's inaugural Harbinger set of 2003, and a total of 9 of them, about 12%, were orcs, starting with this trio of half-orcs. First up is Krusk, half-orc barbarian. A bit on the smaller side for both orc and barbarian, his axe is raised high and at the ready, feet solidly planted. His brown leather jerkin is it for armor, other than a bit of plate covering the private parts. Note the skull belt buckle. Score: Pain 11, Pose 12, Playability 10, Pizzazz 10, for a score of 44. Next up is this half-orc monk. Great kung fu pose, body turned to profile, one arm raised above his head to strike, the other held low to counterpunch. Garbed in typical brown monk robes and trousers, I like the bare torso. Score: Paint 13, Pose 16, Playability 12, Pizzazz 18, for a score of 59. Last up is this half-orc fighter. Definitely the best armed and armored of the three. He balances a great sword on his shoulder while pointing with his dagger. His front is protected with plate on the legs and torso, while a thick leather cloak protects his back. Score: Paint 13, Pose 14, Playability 14, Pizzazz 14, for a score of 55. WizKids gave us a Cleric of Luthik. WOTC gives us this fantastic Cleric of Grumsh miniature. Pose exhorting the troops to battle, spear held high and a battle cry on his lips. Fantastic detail for true D&D aficionados. Clerics of Grumsh pluck out their right eye to emulate their god. Note how the helmet covers the missing eye. Top-notch detailing on the armor and shield as well. Rare on such an early mini. Score: Time for our first Orc 100. We follow this up with another half-orc, a half-orc assassin. To me, Pose looks like he's skulking along a wall, back pressed against it while holding daggers in each hand. Chainmail under a brown tunic. Note the 3 throwing daggers strapped to his chest. Score: Paint 15, Pose 15, Playability 14, Pizzazz 18, for a score of 62. You're going to need a bunch of these orc archers for your warband. Pose is what you expect from an archer. Nice touch with the front foot standing on a rock. The brown of the leather armor makes for nice contrast for the pops of silver on the bow, helm, and axe blade at his belt. Score: Paint 15, Pose 20, Playability 25, Pizzazz 18, for a score of 78. Next up is this orc berserker, who is posed in full charge with his double-headed battle axe held high above his head, ready to split his foe from crown to crotch. The mini has also perhaps the best facial detailing of the Harbinger 9, from the reddish topknot to bared fangs. Black trousers over a brown leather tunic is it for protection, but he probably doesn't need much. Score: Paint 13, Pose 21, Playability 18, Pizzazz 16, for a score of 68. Our next two are both commons, making them perfect fodder for your orc warband. The first, the orc spear fighter, is armed with, what else? A spear held up and ready. Protected with a paldrone and greave on the thrusting side, along with a helm with some very impressive black hair escaping down his back. Score: Paint 13, Pose 14, Playability 18, Pizzazz 13, for a score of 58. The Orc Warrior has even less armor, just a studded leather tunic and metal headband. Armed with a wicked-looking cutlass that he wields with two hands, Pose captures him just prior to striking. Score: Paint 13, Pose 13, Playability 17, Pizzazz 13, for a score of 56. After our flurry of Harbinger Orcs, we get only two in 2003's Dragon Eye set, but they are both so cool. Starting out with this amazing Eye of Grumpsh miniature. Who else is getting Darth Maul vibes from this guy? The awesome, double-sided, double-bladed battle axe would strike terror to all comers, something he is well aware of as he roars his battle cry. From the steel-toed boots to the chainmail to the studded paldrone, everything about this mini screams, if not Final Boss, then Protector of Final Boss. Originally, I was going to ding it a bit on playability, but I'd find a way to get this on the playmat. Score: 100. Next up is this slightly less awesome Orc Druid. Leaning on his skull-topped bone staff, he is festooned with various charms and fetishes. Fantastic head and facial detail in here. The tusks are prominent, the eyes piercing, and if you look closely, you can see his braided red beard that matches his updo. Score: Paint 25, Pose 18, Playability 21, Pizzazz 23, for a score of 87. We get 4 Orc miniatures in 2004's Archfiend set, starting off with a Cleric of Kord. Kord is the god of battle and strength, so it makes sense that Orcs worship him. His cleric is clad in the standard brown leather armor, and armed with a longsword that he is just pulling out of his back sheath as he strides into battle. Nicely detailed scabbard, by the way. Score: Paint 13, Pose 17, Playability 15, Pizzazz 15, for a score of 60. Next up is our second half Orc Barbarian, which is way better than our first. Posed in full charge mode, note how the feet are set on the base. The most obvious feature is the longsword held in his right hand. Between the outstretched arm and the length of the weapon, it stretches well beyond the base. Browns of various hues for the armor, and a terrific facial expression finish the mini out. Score: Paint 16, Pose 22, Playability 20, Pizzazz 24, for a score of 82. This Orc Champion mini is perfect as a leader of an Orc warband. Holding a two-handed axe in his right hand while he directs his troops with his left, his armor is well augmented with metal, and you catch the detail on his cloak? Yep, it's a bear hide. I also like the half helm he wears. Score: Paint 17, Pose 20, Playability 20, Pizzazz 22, for a score of 79. Our final Archfiends mini is this common Orc Raider. First off, great call giving it a pop of color with the yellow headband. Armed with a spiked buckler and barbed short sword, this mini is well named. I can imagine using a bunch of these as part of a raiding party. Score: Paint 18, Pose 14, Playability 18, Pizzazz 15, for a score of 65. Later in 2004, we get these two in the Giants of Legend set, starting with this Orc Brute. Posed exactly like the Harbinger Orc Berserker, only with a great club rather than battle axe. We also get more color contrast with this one in the gray of the face and hands, and the silver of the belt, headband, and greaves. Score: Paint 14, Pose 21, Playability 20, Pizzazz 16 for a score of 71. We also get our second, well, technically, first Tanaruk. As a reminder, Tanaruks are crosses between an orc and a Tanarite demon. Posed in a full crouch with an interesting looking battle axe held high above his head, we do not get the telltale horns that the WizKid version sports, but a much more demonic grin more than makes up for that. Score: Paint 15, Pose 15, Playability 13, Pizzazz 14 for a score of 57. The final set from 2004, Aberrations, gives us two more, starting with this rather savage-looking mountain orc. Apparently, they grow big in the hills, as this is our tallest orc to date. We get a nice patchwork of colors here, gray for the skin, black for the hair, and brown leather armor over a tan tunic. Pose we've seen many times before, battle axe held high and ready to strike, and with a snarl on his face. Score: Paint 15, Pose 15, Playability 17, Pizzazz 15 for a score of 62. Next up is another commander type, an orc sergeant. To me, Pose looks like he is rallying his troops, right arm raised high to be noticed while he holds his longsword at the ready. We get the standard gray for the body, brown for the armor, allowing for the silver of the helmet to stand out. Score: Paint 13, Pose 16, Playability 15, Pizzazz 13 for a score of 57. WOTC fell into a nice little pattern of giving us 2 orcs per set, and that continues in 2005's Death Knell set, starting out with this very cool named mini, Rask, half-orc chain fighter. What an arrogant pose as he smirks at his enemy, his namesake weapon held before him loosely in both hands. His chainmail tunic leaves his arms and legs bare, while his ponytail swirls behind him. Fantastic detailing across the board. Score: Paint 18, Pose 23, Playability 16, Pizzazz 25 for a score of 82. Moving way down the evolutionary scale, we get this orc savage, clad in naught but a tan loincloth and armed with a handmade axe of stone and wood. These guys would be perfect to use in an encounter far from civilization, and as a common, so it's easy to get a handful. Score: Paint 13, Pose 15, Playability 14, Pizzazz 17 for a score of 59. Another set, another pair of orcs. From 2005's Angel Fire set, we lead off with WOTC's first Orog. This denizen of the Underdark is probably our best armored orc to date, wearing rather ornate full-plate mail that leaves only his tooth-filled mouth exposed. Even the ears are armored. Pose is a bit unusual, leaning way forward with his warhammer fully outstretched before him. I'm not sure how he could deliver a crushing blow from this position. Oh well. Score is Paint 13, Pose 10, Playability 12, Pizzazz 16 for a score of 51. Next up is this Orc Wolf Shaman, a combination of druid and wizard. He is posed holding his talisman high above his head, while his hooked short sword is positioned to deliver a swift backstroke. The best part of the mini is the namesake wolf skin he wears as a cloak, complete with head, legs, and very well detailed fur. Score: Paint 18, Pose 14, Playability 13, Pizzazz 20 for a score of 65. We get 2 half-orc miniatures later in 2005 in the Underdark set, starting out with the first half-orc paladin ever made. And while the WizKids version is good, this one is amazing. The fantastically detailed gold and silver plate looks so good, and the unusually shaped shield, complete with spikes to inflict damage on, is just damn. Longsword, facial detailing. Maybe I should ding it a bit for playability, but what you lose in being able to play it as part of an encounter, you gain as a great PC mini, so score 100. We follow up with this half-orc executioner mini that I just can't imagine getting a lot of use from. I mean, I guess you can use it as a guard outside of a dungeon or torture chamber. Bare-chested over black trousers and a leather corset, the matching mask hides any racial identity. A possible positive is you can use it in a human setting as well. Score: Paint 12, Pose 11, Playability 8, Pizzazz 13, for a score of 44. We go double-double in our first set of 2006 War Drums. Yes, that means we got 4 Orc minis. You can build an entire Orc warband just from War Drum Orcs, as we get 2 commons and 2 rares. Our first common is the Howling Orc mini, while the second is an Orc Mauler. Both are posed ready for battle, with the Mauler more in charge mode, while the Howling Orc stands howling his challenge before charging into battle. The Mauler is better armored and carries a shield to boot, while the Howling Orc probably does more damage with his 2-handed battle axe. So what a great mix of soldiers. I have 5 Howlers and 7 of the Maulers. Score for both: Paint 14, Pose 13, Playability 19, Pizzazz 15, for a score of 61. Of course, the warband needs a leader, which we get in King Obald Many Arrows. I can only assume his name comes from a legendary orc battle where he survived many arrow strikes, as he does not carry a bow. What he does have is a giant orange 2-handed sword that he has casually grounded before him. His ornate armor matches his royal title, as does the expression on his face. Score: Paint 15, Pose 15, Playability 13, Pizzazz 18, for a score of 61. Finally, stationed next to King Obald is this Orc war drummer, beating out battle cadence to inspire the troops. Personal story: I got this mini when I played in a War Drums release event at my local game store, so while other players got the War Duke or the Chamara or a Bronze Dragon as their rare, I got Ringo. Needless to say, I got my clock cleaned in that tournament. Score: Paint 17, Pose 15, Playability 10, Pizzazz 14, for a score of 56. We are back to getting Orcs in pairs in 2006's Blood War set. Fun fact: after getting at least 2 Orcs in the first 9 WOTC sets, they skipped over the War of the Dragon Queen set. Interesting, both are specialized, starting with this half-orc spy. His long midnight blue cloak is perfect for skulking in the shadows, while his curved dagger that he holds in front of him is perfect for throat slitting. I like the face with the intense stare and prominent tusks. Score: Paint 15, Pose 13, Playability 20, Pizzazz 18, for a score of 66. Next is this Orc Wizard, armed with a dagger in one hand and a staff that appears to be topped with halfling skulls in his left. He appears to be posed mid-spell, mouth open as he recites the words of power. I wonder what's coming. Leather breastplate over a brown skirt is it for protection, not that a magic user has much use for armor. Score: Paint 14, Pose 15, Playability 22, Pizzazz 15 for a score of 66. Hey, how about that? We get only one Orc Mini in 2007's Night Below set, but you gotta admit, it's hella cool. It is called an Orc Banebrake Rider, and to date our only mounted Orc miniature. And what a mount, an armored rhinoceros. And how good must that rider be? No need to hold on to any reins as he wields twin battle axes to strike at either side as his rhino mount blasts through enemy defenses. I haven't had the opportunity yet, but one day I'm going to drop this onto a playmat during an Orc Battle Royal with the PCs and enjoy the chaos. Score: Paint 21, Pose 25, Playability 18, Pizzazz 25 for a score of 89. Another single Orc Mini and another Orc Raider, this one from 2008's Dungeons of Dread set. As befitting a mini you'll need a lot of, this Raider is a common as well. Better armed and armored than the Archfiend's version, wielding a shield and battle axe rather than a buckler and short sword. Better detailed too. Hell, just look at them together. Me, I'd mix them together for variety. Score: Paint 16, Pose 17, Playability 21, Pizzazz 18 for a score of 72. We are back to getting Orcs in pairs in 2009's Monster Manual Dangerous Delve set, leading off with this Orc Eye of Grumsh. I assume it's a cleric, but the poor facial detailing makes it impossible to determine if it's missing an eye. Pose is solid, set in profile, leading with his wooden shield while his longsword is set high in behind his body, ready to strike. Silver plate mail and brown cloak complete the look. Score: Paint 12, Pose 14, Playability 15, Pizzazz 13 for a score of 54. Next up is his ominously named Orc Terrorblade, another common cannon fodder mini for your warband. He stands with a cutlass at the ready and a grimace on his face. Armor is the usual leather with bits of plate. Score: Paint 14, Pose 15, Playability 15, Pizzazz 13 for a score of 57. Which brings us to WOTC's final set, 2010's Lords of Madness, and our final two Orc minis, a common Orc Archer and a rare Orc War Chief. The Archer is an unspectacular but necessary mini for your warband. You need missile cover. Posed with an arrow in one hand and a bow in the other, he awaits orders to ready and loose. The paint is mediocre. The browns of the dress and equipment blends too well with the gray skin. Score: Paint 9, Pose 13, Playability 20, Pizzazz 11 for a score of 53. Our Orc War Chief is not particularly special either. He's already smaller than most Orcs, exacerbated by the crouching pose. His weapon, a very long two-handed sword, stretches well ahead of the base, is kinda cool, but like the Archer, the paint job is nondescript at best. There are much better options for your warband commander. Score: Paint 11, Pose 13, Playability 13, Pizzazz 12 for a score of 49.
And in 2 videos we've knocked out the Orc miniatures. Thanks again to all who watch my channel. As always, comments are appreciated. We'll start off with our next set of videos next week with a much more diverse group, collectively labeled as Outsiders. So until then, I am the Beholder, signing off.